Hi everybody, Dr. Pingle here. I just wanted to give you a quick tour of ArcScene in ArcGIS Pro. So ArcScene has been around for a while. Now it's integrated into ArcGIS Pro, so it's very easy to get started. So far when we've started with projects, we've started with a new map, but in this case you're going to pick a new local scene. What this is going to do is it's going to create a 3D layer. It's going to populate that with the global elevation data set and a standard base map. Now, at first glance, this looks exactly like a standard map. The difference being that you can manipulate this in 3 dimensions. So if you pull up on this slider, you can get access to the full control, which you can then use to pan and zoom and get a perspective. You can also use your middle mouse button to do the same thing. So here I'm panning around, holding that middle mouse button down so that I can see what's going on. If we zoom in to Blacksburg, if you look very closely, you'll see just a little bit of shape going on here. Now that's not very much. Keep in mind that proportionally the Earth is smoother than a billiard ball. So to get a good look at this, what you're going to want to do is set some vertical exaggeration on the scene. So you can do that pretty easily. If we look at the ground surface here, highlighting ground right here, you'll notice that an elevation surface appearance pops up. So if you click on this, one of the things that you can do is set the vertical exaggeration. So by default it's set to 1. So to make this look a little bit more interesting, you might set this to something a little bit larger. So here I've set the vertical exaggeration to 10. So that should start to let us see some of the more interesting features here. So you can see just a little bit more popping up over here. I'll zoom in a little bit more. So if I zoom in really closely, you can really start to see the 3D effect popping in here. So we could crank that up even further and set it to something like 25. This will take just a minute to render. I'll zoom out a little bit here. So there you can see a very vertically exaggerated surface. Just getting a quick look at how this is structured. So here's kind of the valley to the east of Blacksburg. You can see the mountain ranges over here. And then you can see sort of the back end. Sorry. A little disorienting there. You can see the back end of the Appalachian Mountains back there. So this is probably more vertical exaggeration than you would want, obviously, but it is kind of a nice way to get a sense of what's going on. So what's going on in this contents pane here? Well, we've got 2 things. One is a topographic layer here. And the second is a world elevation layer. So this is where the terrain information is coming from, and this is the layer that's draped on top of it. But just like any other GIS, I'm going to crank this down a little bit. Just like any other GIS, we can bring in different layers. We can bring in raster and vector layers. What I thought I'd show you how to do is to use the USGS Historical Topographic Map Explorer to bring in a layer. So if we search for Blacksburg, Virginia, with this tool, we'll get a list of all of the different topo maps that have been created through the years for Blacksburg. So this is a fairly recent one, so I'll just go ahead and choose that one. You can choose one from your hometown. You can choose an older one if you're interested. But this will get us started just fine. All right, so we zoom in and we can see the map overlaid on top of our screen. We're just going to download this. It's not such a big download. This is going to come in as a geotiff file. So I'll pause the video while that comes in. Okay, that file has downloaded, so I'm just going to right-click and extract it to that folder. So here's our geotiff layer. Now within ArcPro, we can just bring this in the same way that we've done before. We're going to select 2D layers and then add data. And I'm going to browse, put that in the temp2 directory. Hang on one second. We'll just check where we put that. All right, so this is in temp2 and then Virginia Blacksburg. I think we just didn't have the folder updated here. So let's try that again. Add data. This is actually not uncommon with ArcPro. So what it's telling us right now is that we only have this file in our folder, but we know that within temp2 we should have a lot more than that. What we need to do is just refresh our folder. So if you click this icon in the upper right hand corner, it will sort of re-poll that directory and see if there's anything new in there since the last time it checked. So if you're ever missing your data, this is a good trick to at least try. So this is the data that we just downloaded. So that's going to come in and it's going to drop it in the right place, just like we would expect the GIS software to do. So while that's bringing it in, we'll just wait a second. Okay, so what I'm going to do is uncheck the topo layer. So before I do that here, what you can see right here is that map drapes on top of the terrain. So it's really nice because it saves us the trouble of having to download the terrain layer, which is what you used to have to do in the ArcMap version 10.6 and earlier. So here we're draping that topo map directly on it. I'm gonna, well, we might as well leave it turned on for now. We can zoom in on Blacksburg and take a look, and we can start to get a good look at the shape of the town as it was related to the terrain. If we kind of move this around, we can pivot, and we get this sort of semi-realistic view of the terrain. So here we've got what must be maybe the duck pond there. Here's the drill field. And so you can really see quite a few features on here. The stadium down there. And this is just kind of a nice way to explore the space, get a feel for this feature. And obviously, just like before, we can click back on the ground layer and change this vertical exaggeration. 15 might be a little extreme here, so we might set that to something like 8 and see if that improves our view. Your computer does have to work pretty hard sometimes to do these renderings. So a newer computer with a better graphics card is going to make this go a little bit faster. So you'll have to kind of be a little patient depending on what you're working with. So this is, again, just kind of a really nice, fun way of visualizing the space. Really getting a chance to see how the contour lines line up with the terrain. You can see some probable errors with the contouring up here, or potentially an error in the DEM. You can see the radio tower placed right on the top there. So again, just kind of play around with this, give it a try. In the next lesson, we'll talk a little bit about custom surfaces.